You can't stop me now. Can't stop me now. And my feet have come too far for you to tie 'em to the ground. You can't stop me now. Can't stop me now. Set my sights on where I'm going at. Be turning back around. You can't stop me.
Good evening and welcome to the Psych Cough Shop. Mercury and we went into retrograde, so we're expecting technical problems. That's all right. We will rock through if we have them. So with me tonight is Voices of Eden, ancient healing and transformational music, Eliana, who has been on TEDx twice as a presenter, a motivational speaker, healing voice mentor, therapeutic singer, trainer, and performer and founder of Voices of Eden, Ancient Wisdom and Healing Music Institute. How are you, darling?
Oh, wonderful. Like, really great.
Yeah, you're out. You guys are just starting to warm up out there in LA.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's and now that the sun is out longer, I'm looking out my window right now. I live high in a tower and the light is very, very soft and
Mhm.
there's kind of a golden tint to it. And it's shimmering off the mountains in front of me. It really is quite beautiful.
Uh-huh. So you've been to Paris, you studied there, and you went on to Israel to study. What'd you learn about the intercity trains of Paris?
Of the inner city trains in Paris, well, let's back up, okay?
Okay.
Like to actually what we were speaking about just before we got on. So out that window where the hills are, I'm actually looking at the Hollywood sign too, and
Hmm.
where I was born, underneath that sign in a hospital named Cedars of Lebanon, which foretold of my future outside of the US, first in France and Europe, and then the Middle East. And let's say I came into this life conscious. And from maybe some of you who are listening, can you relate? Like you have this sense, like, like there's something that's calling you, but you have no name for it. You have no words for it. And, this is how I came in. Ever since I was a little girl, I said, when I'm big, I'm going to have friends all over the world and I'm going to go visit them. And I really have lived my life that way. But then it wasn't like that. I grew up in a family in an environment where that was not the norm by any stretch of the imagination. And, I grew up in Hollywood, literally, where, we achieve our enlightenment. It's like
Hmm.
looking good.
Yeah.
I looked really good and when it looked better and better and it felt more and more like shit, pardon my French, inside. And when the recession came at the end of the 80s, I was downsized. They said, we're not firing you, we're just not continuing your position and look for another job. And I couldn't look for another job. That's something that's calling me,
Hmm.
is calling me so heavily. And I didn't know what it was, but I could see the writing on the wall that in another 20, 30 years, everything was going to fall apart. And I thought, you know what? If I make my changes now when I don't have to, I can jump off into the unknown in another 20, 30 years when whatever will happen, I'll already be on the other side. And then I'll be able to come back and
Hmm.
help. So the thing that really got me, it's kind of a long way around to the trains, but it's very pertinent. What enabled me to jump off, I think that we shoot ourselves in the foot so much when there's that voice that speaks within us that's guiding us to something that's very, very real, but it's another paradigm. It's not cognitive.
Hmm.
That what I found in my life to be so helpful is that when both sides are equal and I don't have an answer, it's the fear back then, this is like 30 years ago, the fear of getting to the end of my life and not knowing why I was alive was more terrifying than the terror and panic of jumping off into the unknown and not knowing.
Well,
So
and you bring up a good point there about listening to that inner voice, or I call them spirit guides. And I think we all have learned that lesson by now, that when they speak, we should probably pursue that, follow our gut instinct. That's actually how I got into this business. Was, this wasn't my job. I was going to be a nurse and everything was going to be great, and 120 hours a week, and
mhm.
try to rock this out 20 years at a state institution, get a nice retirement, get a boat somewhere. Yeah. Oh, I don't think so. You need to slow down. Oh, I don't think so. You need to slow down. Fine, you ain't going to slow down. We'll slow you down. So
you want to know about the trains?
yes.
All right. So I'm from Hollywood, right? So I ended up, amongst other things, when I went to France, I had a project with CBS television. It was my voice that broadcast. If you were in the States in 1992 and you watched the Olympics, you heard my voice broadcasting it to the 60 million viewers.
Mm-hmm.
And I had already thrown away my television set because I'm like the main player in my life, not what somebody else is telling me.
Mm-hmm.
And every day, the guy who I sat next to in the wire, he would read the wire services. Now, this is before the days of internet. So it was like this little box of just, Reuters, UPI, AP, and he'd go, God, listen, you wouldn't believe what happened. And I just shut my mouth until one day I got up enough courage. I said, I actually do know. He goes, what? Well, war, rape, pillage. Good news is a ceasefire. And, it's the same story around the world. Only the places changes. He's going, you're from the moon. Let's look.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like that. And it became this joke between us. He goes, I swear I'm going to find you your good news story. And of course, he never did. And during those Olympic Games, I prayed to use my voice for a higher purpose. And the Voices of Eden is, 30 years later. It's not immediately 30 years. It's been over a 30-year period. This is the result. And it's called Voices of Eden because it's a living experiment of creating Eden on earth, one authentic voice at a time. Now, the train come in is that there I am living in France, after a year, I'm working for CBS, again, it looks all fine and dandy on the outside. But inside, it's like, what am I doing here? What is my role? What is my role? Mm-hmm. How am I going to use my voice? And since I was a little girl until then, that always was, it was like this burning fire inside of me. And so at New Year's, I remember going, okay, God, I have learned my lessons in life. Okay, but, I have to have my answer. What's my role? And I'm ready to die. It's like, I am not willing to live this way anymore. And I will listen, but I will not work for a living anymore because the way I grew up, what with your faith, you buy bread in the marketplace, and my family and my friends, they thought I was absolutely off my rockers. I didn't have a lot of support for living in this way. And, I decided that I wouldn't eat that I would only take work if the bell rang inside. And if the bell didn't ring, I'd say no. And I said no enough times that I ran out of money. I didn't have money left. I always figured to that fear, that negative voice, well, there's always McDonald's. I mean, there's always a job, like you say, with your 20 hours, there's always a job. But I was off following something that made no sense, but I knew. Mm-hmm. And that was the game. And So I didn't eat for 2 days. And I found out about this spiritual support group. And I had a monthly Metro pass so I could like get to the place. And I go to this place. And on the way, I remember, God, everybody's supposed to bring something. It's for creativity. You're supposed to bring something. And I didn't have anything to bring, but I remembered this Hebrew spiritual from my childhood. I'm member of Levite tribe. I mean, unbroken on both my mom and my dad's side, thousands of years. So I go there. I remember this Hebrew spiritual from my childhood. I don't have to. I'm not going to share that. I'm just going to sit in the corner, imbibe inspiration, and and just having faith. I'm going to receive some kind of clarity. And I get there, and they're sitting in a circle. So I couldn't sit in the corner, and they're all sharing their things and sharing whatever their process or what they're going through. And I'm like, God, please, end this meeting before it has to be my turn. And it gets to my turn, and I saying this Hebrew spiritual, and there's this focus in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And then I share what I'm going through. I said, I haven't eaten in 2 days. I said, the problem isn't getting a job. That's not the issue at all. I need to know why I'm here. What is my role? And this guy comes up to me afterwards with this finger in my face. He goes, your voice speaks. You have work to do with your voice. He goes, tomorrow morning, he puts his hand in his jeans pocket. He takes out this crumpled piece of paper. He goes, tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. He was like very precise. He goes, you go to Donferrocho. It's the train station. You get on the RERB line and you sing that song because the people on the train need it. I'm like, are you certified loony? I'm not gonna work for a living. I'm certainly not gonna get on a train and busk. No way. And then the voice inside of me goes, oh, Miss Spiritual, like the bell rang. Because you're willing to not eat for 2 days. But now when the bell rings, are you going to do it? And I leave that meeting, I'm pooping in my pants. I didn't know whether I'd have the courage to wake up. And in the morning I wake up, it's like in winter, I go to the train station and they're getting on the trains and I'm not getting on there. What am I, what do they think at home in LA? Is she a bag lady? Is she gone certified loonies? And then the doors close, and at the last minute, I find myself pushing the doors open, jumping on the train. And everybody, this is before the days of cell phones, everybody's with the newspaper. And in Europe, it's like you don't establish eye contact. It's just like not polite. Everybody keeps there. So they're all like reading their books and papers. And I say, bonjour, j'ai une petite chanson afin de bien commencer la journée. Good morning. I'm here. I have a small song to start off the day on the right foot. And I start singing this Hebrew spiritual and
ding
again. And I know the papers are coming down and the books are coming down. And when I finish the song, there's like silence you could cut with a knife because they're all waiting for me to ask for money. And I'm like, okay, God, so help me. There's no friggin' way I'm asking for money. So either answer me with my answer or I will die on the spot. The choice is yours, but there ain't no friggin' way. I'm not busking. And what came out of my mouth was that. I'm not here to ask you for money. I said, if there's anything that I'm here to ask you for, it's that you do something kind for yourself today. And if somebody here will actually do that, I give a huge big time. And I found myself walking up and down the aisle, looking at every person in the eye and going, like a nice California, have a nice day. They like pushed money in my hands, and I had no hat, no purse. I hadn't brought anything with me. I was wearing this long dress that, I made like this pocket out of the fabric, and I went out, and for the first time in my life, I knew I had made a contribution. The CBS story, that's very sexy. Showing up in the same way I did that in one take, but that's very, television, that sounds sexy. Right. but it is not sexy singing on a train, but it was sexy for me. It's like, because I listened to I dared connect inside. I dared listen to that voice, or what you say, your spirit guides. I dared respect what I was hearing. I dared trust it. I had the courage to act upon it. And that gave me the courage to show up and offer what I had. And it was never, ever, ever about the singing. I ended up doing that. Well, I went back the next day, and this Argentinian busker follows me out. He goes, "Well, that's amazing what you do. You need to add amazing grace." I'm like, well, that's a good idea. So I do Eli and Amazing Grace. And it was never about the singing. It was about showing up and worrying for my sanity. Did I go off of my rocker? And what didn't come up? I'm like this, former yuppie on the spiritual path. It was about having the guts to trust my voice and show up, especially when it made zero sense. And at the end of that week, I was offered this very cushy, like, corporate job, that would have paid, the rent and the, very, very steady. But I'd already gotten to the end of that week and was just so inspired by this process that, thank God I had the courage. I realized that I had found my calling, which was through the music to, if we'd only dare stop long enough to listen to ourselves, then that can provide us the answers, 24/7. You don't even need a Wi-Fi hookup, And
no, but it comes in handy nowadays.
It comes in very handy. Look, and God bless the internet. It's how I've been able to be in contact with the world, over.
Right. And you're able to touch the world all over the place.
Yeah,
it's so here's the prophetess Miranda.
The prophetess Miriam?
Uh-huh.
Well, ever heard, how many people, let's see in the chat if there are people, anybody know who prophetess Miriam is? You're not the only one.
Yeah.
Ever heard of Moses?
Yeah.
All right. So Miriam is his elder sister. It's she who prophesied. It's because of her that he was ever born. She's like the archetype of, mother, feminine power. And the ancient texts, the ancient commentaries say that you don't have to be religious or understand anything, but if those who grew up in some Judeo-Christian kind of Western background or Disney movies, you kind of know the Bible story of the Egyptians.
Easter comes on, there's the shot.
Part what?
The Ten Commandments, they play it every dang Easter on the East Coast.
Oh, okay.
Weekend.
Right. All right. So you see the parting of the seas, right? I love it. All right. So when the Pharaoh decreed the murder of the firstborn males, her father, Moses' father, their father, Amram, he was the head of the Sanhedrin, the Hebrew tribes. This is way, way, way before Judaism. This is like thousands of years before. And he goes, "No way. I'm just going to divorce my wife and we're not going to have any children." And they're, and she comes to her father. She goes, "Your decree is worse than Pharaoh's, because he said murder of the firstborn males. You're going to decimate your whole people. So listen to me, and you listen to me good, father. Take your wife back. You will have another child. You'll have a son, and that son will be the one who will bring humanity forward." And the father listens to her, takes her back. The rest of the people do the same. And Moses was born. It's she who takes him down. The bulrush store puts him in the bulrush. It's she who had the ear of the Pharaoh's daughter to have him taken in by Pharaoh and arranges for their mom to get a full-time job being his wet nurse. That's power.
Oh, yeah.
And she would have had the ear of the Pharaoh. And then, all right, back to Charlton Heston and Hollywood movies and the Party of the Seas. So I always thought, how could the seas part? It says in the text, and the women say, Miriam led the women singing in refrain, blah, 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 blah. But the translations or the Hollywood movies are, we're living in a cognitive, modern, masculine. I don't mean man, woman. I know but we're living in an intellectual, masculine, sequential worldview. And then we were living in a matriarchal worldview where there are many layers of reality. Everything's connected. It's organic and holistic. And the essence of all matter of the atom is vibratory. And we were so sophisticated back then, much more than we are today, on wielding the use of sound. And she would have been, she was a leader. It wouldn't have been just her, though. We have in hieroglyphics in ancient Egypt and in ancient Israel. In my hometown, Kiryat Yibon, we see in the ancient catacombs. You see, and in Egypt, on the way to the birth chambers and the funerary chambers, you see women, and on one side they have these, drums. You see in the back, and on the other side, bells and sistrum.
Right. Well, while we're in the ancient text, we can talk about, the walls of Jericho coming down from a parade, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's excellent. Yeah. Because that's an excellent example of a destructive use of sound. We can use sound constructively or destructively.
Right. And you touched on it and kind of danced around it. But a lot of the current translations, which are, I think, 1946. There's a movie waiting to come out with them. But they have been very well edited to take out the feminine, to take out the Gnostic idealism, to take out the female power behind it. Now, pre-show, we always have a talk, guys. We always get our coffee and have a talk. You said you wanted to ask me something because you had some intuition onto something.
Yeah. I love it. So if you guys haven't seen this, go listen to Aeson's video. I don't know exactly where
it's my intro video.
It's so
on the YouTube channel.
It's so beautiful. Go watch it. It's like really beautiful. And in that video, you speak about Roma, your Roma ties. And I've always had such connection to Roma. In fact, it would take this interview 30 years later. When I was singing on the trains, it was me and the Roma and the gypsies who would go on. And there was this one guy, this Moroccan guy. I don't know if he was Moroccan. He was somewhere from North Africa. And he would always come in. He was a busker. He was a mean kind of guy. He would like scare people when he came in. And there's like this underground culture in the trains. And I asked him one day, when you come in, because I never asked for money, and he would come in grabbing for money, and he would come in, he'd like wait in between the train. There's like this little space, and he'd wait till I was done singing and then come in. But that, in the silence after the sound, was what was most healing, most penetrating. And then when he would come in, it was violent. He wasn't conscious of what he was doing. And it went on for months. And at one point, then I decided to say something. I said, when you come in, I said, you have the freedom. Good for you. You're doing what's right for you. I said, and we're both doing very important work here. I said, I would just request, there's the point when I finish my music, there must be silence. And I am asking you, wait until I leave the car. Then do whatever you want. And I'm not asking them for money. You'll get plenty of money. And then he came in again. He didn't respect it. And at some point, I decided to say something, and I knew I was taking my life in my hands. He came after me, and he beat me in mid-daylight, in the middle of the train station. And I'm screaming, and nobody comes to me. It felt like the Second World War all over again. Who came? The gypsies, the Roma, because there was a girl that happened to her, and I came to her aid. I went to the men, and I don't know what I said, but it was loving and kind, and it stopped.
Mm-hmm.
God, that just shows you what goes around comes around.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't why I wanted to.
Right.
I digress.
Okay.
A few months ago, in this summer, I was in San Miguel de Allende in Mexico, and in this wonderful event where there were musicians, and there was flamenco, and my musical background is in Eastern music. It's not in Western Hollywood music. And I played, and we had such great connection. And the guy I most connected with, he was the guitarist. He was a Roma.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and he'd been born in Spain, but then they came to Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
And in Colombia, this is what I want to, I don't know, in Colombia, how do I say it? Well, when I told him I was from, that I'd lived my adult life in Israel, he goes, oh, so judío. He said, I'm like, judío is Jewish, but we say Jewish in English, but it's not religion.
Right.
There was connection. And since I thought that was so really? Yeah. And it but it made sense what he said. Didn't make sense here, but I knew what he was saying, that there was some connection. I go, God, I got to look this up. And then I've been moved to go to Colombia. And when I was researching last month or 2 months ago in Bogota, I see that there was Hebrew community there.
Mm-hmm.
And Roma. So I'm wondering whether
I've not been that way. As far as I know, my family, after we left the Carpathian enslavement, we came through New York, and then we stuck to from New York down to the upper reaches of Florida, and were returned back up following the planting season.
What do you know what your origins are?
Carpathian, Romania.
Oh, Romania. Okay.
Yeah, Romania. Yeah. My tribal family would have been part of the enslaved released in 1886.
Right, but there's much further back. Do you know further back?
I don't know further back.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Because Romania, there's I don't know the Romanian side so much, so I don't even want to say anything because I'm ignorant there. But the ties, like the ancient ties, like when I saw that Colombia and he said judío, it's like because like what Roma communities have that Far Eastern and Middle Eastern and Indian communities have is that the music, because it's traditional and was handed down, by tradition and through women, that they're remnants of the ancient. We have that to thank because today when everything is falling apart, and that's what That's
Right.
that's what I'm doing here on this planet Earth. I'm in service to the resurgence,
Mhm.
of this ancient
Right.
feminine leadership and healing voice way that helps us to connect to the source of our power beyond our cognitive mind.
Right.
And through voice, it helps us to connect to that higher mind and then bridge in through our human, cognitive expression.
Right. And very much so. And not only is the music um, continued to the women family, there's been a lot of, all right, I'm just going to lay it out there. There's been a lot of bullshit laid at the Romney view of, women aren't valued and they're commodities and yada, yada, yada. Bull crap. My grandmother would knock any damn man on his ass and dare him to talk back to her or some of the stuff that we've seen on TV. Um, because in my world, the women ran the family, they ran the household, they ran the bank account, the man asked for the money. Like, so I don't, it's different, and that's the other part of dealing with Rama is you have to deal with the tribe itself, because one tribe will be ran one way, one tribe, even though the same vein, cousin tribes will be run totally different. The tribe I come through is very much ran by women. Um, the music is very important. I mean, and we're not talking the soft little gentle music. No, we're talking thumpa thumpa. You know, you know,
How is it used?
and everything. If you're working through the day, turn up the music. If you're needing healing, it's not this whole, there isn't no go cry me on the mountain. It's more like rockabilly through into the heavens. I mean, that viewpoint of like, no, music is for celebration. Music is for sad times. Music is for creation. Music is everything, and, that is, we see in a lot of cultures all the way back to like the African tribes and even lower cultures. The thing that stands in there is the drum, is the fiddle, is the guitar. There isn't this little no, it's full strumming, full playing, very vibrant music. And even to today's time, we look at Aeson's playlist, and I've got a few out there. It isn't no soft music. My good morning music is very heavy metal, very much a guitar and a drum, like beating into the sunlight, raising that vibrational energy.
Hey, would you like, just as we're speaking, I would be more than happy to compose something right now, live on the spot.
We can, but I'd rather them go and hear
All
you
right.
professionally, and you've got a few places to do that at. First of all, where can they get more information on you
Well,
and
actually, if you would like to hear this in its true power and connected, oh, how funny. You really want to experience the parting of the seas and the power of it? I have a free class that in celebration of the new book, which is Emerge Triumphant, Thrive Through Uncertainty.
Mhm.
Within 24 hours, it reached #1 international bestseller status in 6 categories, which astounds me. Actually, it doesn't astound me when you're connected to source, how difficult are things. But I'm just delighted. And in celebration of that, in honor of it, I have put together a free 2-hour workshop.
Mhm.
And in that workshop, I'm just pulling out my stops. Oh, hold on, because it's full circle to that train story.
Yeah.
When I didn't take the job, when I turned the job down, I said, no, I'm going to follow this. I got clear. What was really clear is that, that was my role with the music, and to use media for constructive purposes, which is why we're here today.
Right.
I'm doing this. I'm coming back into Hollywood, the full podcasts and radios and television, the whole thing, for constructive purposes
Mm-hmm.
to celebrate that in this free, it's a 2-hour, it's really an amazing workshop. And there are exercises in there, and I'm getting goosebumps as I'm saying this. The most powerful one in there is 10 years ago, I had a project, been online forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this project, I was in Israel. I had this project with someone in the States, and I drove down to the Sinai Desert, to the Red Sea, to the ancient site of the parting of the seas. We're not talking Hollywood. We're not talking Charlton Heston.
We're not talking Colorado.
No, not Colorado. No, not exactly. I pitched a tent. I slept out there, and at dawn, I went up and composed a piece. It is so powerful. So there's an exercise with that helps you to connect to the source of your power and of your voice and your call. It's in there. If you please, you know,
Right.
you're
And then there's also some free meditation music at voiceofeden.com.
Yeah. Actually, if you go to voicesofeden.com at the top, there'll be a link to that free workshop.
Awesome.
It's so powerful.
It is.
And there's one other thing that I want to say. When I offered to compose something now, it's and I don't have to. I'm not relating to that.
I'm really not wanting to do that because I'm afraid.
Yeah, with the sound,
copyrights and all that. It's a nightmare to have music on my show of any type.
And what this is, you guys, this is I'm so glad you brought that up, because this is not like we have people come into our courses and in the therapeutic singing certification, it's called therapeutic singing, and they're so astounded when there's not singing at the beginning, because it's not, this is not a performance, and it's not a professional thing of a performance, but I don't know how to say it in words because it's beyond cognitive. You'll just go listen and don't believe anything I'm saying anyway, because it's not worth diddly squat. It's really.
Oh, I totally think it's worth diddly squat, but you know, and let's kind of talk about this because it's going on all in the music industry is the copyright claims. We recorded, I do Second Life. It's a video game. We had no sound in it, no volume, no sound. I was going to have to voice over the recording. Literally, we had like 10 copyright claims when I just tried to upload the video to see if it needed to get scaled down to go into YouTube.
I know. Well, yeah, I know. It's a whole. I fortunately haven't had to deal with much of the copyright issue because this is all my music. I own it.
I know, honey. But if someone comes out with a melody just even close to yours,
they won't.
The YouTube will pull it. They do it every time.
Yeah, they won't. Being 25 years online and a YouTube channel with. We have 1 million views at this point. It's not the kind of music thing that you could really use, and people have.
Yeah.
And there's Spotify. Here's a little Spotify on my computer and all of these things, and my music is on all of it. Have I seen a penny from it? No. Zero money.
Yeah.
Do I worry about it? Zero. Because I know the power that's beyond that. And it's why I'm here right now speaking as I am, because there's like today, we have more music in our daily life than ever before. Video games, it's pervasive. And never before have we had less music in our life.
Yeah. And it's because it's being so contained.
And synthesized, and maybe you could call it, it's kind of like I akin it to mother's milk and formula. Both will feed, only one will nourish. And, I'm here in service to nourish.
Oh, yeah.
And, so for the rest, and I figure for the Spotify's and this and that, it's like, okay, I consider that, well, that helps get the energetic out, and what goes around comes around, so that
Oh, yeah.
if I'm offering that, I've actually thought, and I probably will at some point, to go find it all and, take it
Well,
off, because why should, it's like,
well,
it's,
you don't even have to do that. They now have companies that do it for you.
oh yeah?
Yeah,
Oh,
they will, and that's what I'm talking about. Is it's a program company, owns the software. They sell you the service. They go through. They grab anything that sounds like there's a file copyright claim about it.
no, meaning if there's a company that would take all of my stuff off,
Yeah.
so that,
Yeah, because as soon as the copyright claim comes up, it pulls the video down.
Oh, I don't mean about people who used my music. I
Yeah.
don't mind. If they did, God bless you. God bless you. I wish you well. And I only get more good back. My existence is not dependent upon a penny or a dollar. That would be whoring myself, and I gave that up long ago.
Yeah. So guys, go check out voicesofeden.com. Click the workshop there. Also, check out the emerging. I'm sorry, I can't.
Well, emergetriumphantnow.com is where you'll find the free workshop. And at voicesofeden.com/book is where you will find the new book. And there's an amazing clip on there of also of this ancient sites. It's pretty cool. It's the energetic. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's very cool. All right, darling. Well, thanks for joining us tonight, and come back when you get the next recording and book out.
Thank you.
A training course is coming.
Pardon, what?
You got a training course coming.
Oh, we have training courses for 30 years.
Yeah, I know, but this is going to be one to be teaching people to keep going after the 30 years. All right, guys, let's take a sip.
If you would like a little course, if you're looking for your voice, like during these last years where you've been living with people or isolated from people, and you like really looking to express yourself authentically and feeling how am I going to express myself authentically, even when people, or especially with those who might not understand what I'm about, go check out findyourtruevoice.net. It's a jumpstart training. I made it during the pandemic in lockdown because my clients were really suffering from that. I thought, well, it's a wonderful resource, and it
is. Plus, go check out your TEDx talks.
Yeah.
All right, Erlen, you have a lovely evening.
You too. Thanks so much for you.
And next up, we have Betsy Cirillo.
Hello.
Hello, honey. How are you?
Oh, I'm good, and it's so nice to be able to talk to you.
It is. You were in last month's magazine. You've been on my reading list since Audible suggested you coming out, and then I just was so happy when it was for you to come on here, because
thank you.
You've done a lot. You were the first federally recognized business
for 8A that used LGBT as the status, the discriminating factor. So yeah.
And your new book, Shake It Off Leadership, is not your traditional leadership book. I've read a lot of them, and it's like, this is real.
Yeah. Aeson, I wanted to. It was really about legacy for me. I wanted to be able to give back, and so many people stood with me along the way that this was really just a compilation of my experiences and my mistakes.
And your triumphs.
Yeah.
So let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
For the people that don't know you, how did you start AdNet?
So I started the company 32 years ago, and the company is Professional Staffing and Executive Search. So, I'm a corporate girl, but I do have to tell you, along the way with my spiritual journeys, I have been referred to as a corporate medicine woman. So that helps to keep me grounded.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started the company, it was very hard to get financing. So other than my savings and at the time, my retirement plan, I just got a boatload of credit cards. And I thought that might be what I have to rely on for my financing since a bank won't finance me. And thank God I did that because
Mm-hmm.
that's really how I survived in the early
Yeah,
years.
in the early years.
Hmm.
Because when we say the early years, we're talking the 80s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
even more close to 40 years ago. I was a little like, it hit me the other day. It's like, oh God, I remember stuff that isn't even in existence anymore.
I know.
The ways of doing business, ways of
Yeah.
getting the ways you used to dress for business. You
Right.
talk about that in the book.
Hmm.
What was expected and what was
Hmm.
handled. How you've gone through and you've got different. You run your organization a good bit differently, but
Yes.
comparative to when you first took the reins.
So when I first started the company, I was always a majority partner, a majority owner, and the staffing industry in general has always been a tough industry. Now the concept is to just get people placed in jobs they call put butts in the seats, and they burn and churn people out for
Mhm.
recruiters. And that was not really what I wanted to do. I happened to really love the industry. I fell into it.
Mhm.
And I just wanted people to be loved and cared for. Now, it's not every time that happens, but the intention is that we treat people with a lot of compassion. But Asen, sometimes people don't know what to do with that
No.
because they come with their own wounds that
Mhm.
when you're trying to guide people or even call out bad behaviors, they don't want to hear it. They don't want
Yeah.
to be accountable.
Yeah. And they don't want to, pay attention to their
Mhm.
behaviors or
Right.
to grow with the change. And we've seen a lot of that, and we're still seeing
Yes.
that a lot of that in our community. From the changing of pronouns to Black Lives Matter to the Me Too
Mhm.
movement,
Mhm.
to GBLT now being accepted in the workplace. You
Yes.
know, that's a whole different ballgame that we're still treading through.
Mhm. Mhm. It is, my other work, I'm the co-founder of the Maryland LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and we've also very close to launching the Maryland LGBT Foundation. So, there's so many more acronyms that are getting added, and my granddaughter, who's 16 years old, will tell me, "Well, you need to know what all these mean." And I'm like, "Well, you tell me." So, the youth today, they have so much information and they're
Mhm.
up on everything. I honestly, I never want to offend someone if I don't get all the acronyms right. Like,
Right.
for example, the Q. Back in the 80s, if we were called queer, that was hurtful and there were so many wounds from it. So I don't identify as Q. But for those that do, if you've taken that acronym, that pronoun, that on, and it brings you joy, then that's great for me. That's what I want for you. But I don't identify that. Don't call me queer.
Well, I'm going to tap into your business savviness for a moment and your intuitive side of you. When do you think we get to drop them?
Say that again.
When do you think we get to drop them? When do we stop having that post-it note on our shoulder that says, G or B or LGBTQ plus IA?
You know, honestly, Asen, I just turned 60. I would hope that in my lifetime
Mm-hmm.
I see that change. But there's just still a lot of hate
Mm-hmm.
around it. And when you think about same-sex marriage, all we're really wanting is to honor someone that we love. So why are people so hateful about our community? It's just, It's wrong. Any diverse community. It's not really just about me, but it's about someone of color, someone who's disabled. I mean, people just have to put their efforts towards something better for the world than hate.
All right. This isn't in the book, but I want your view from this, because you're like me. We have the records to look at it.
Yep.
What do you think about what's going on right now?
In the world in general?
In the world, in the United States in general.
My heart breaks. My heart breaks. But I will never lose hope that we can't get it right. My company is a federal contractor, and what goes on in the federal government is really unsettling. I stop reading the news. I feel like so many of us out in the world would be a lot closer to our opinions if the politicians would get out of the way, because everything seems to be a political statement. So if you just stop it and stop infusing all the separation and the hate, maybe the rest of us can find our way back to center, because that's really what it's about.
It is. It's about finding our center. It's about finding what's right for us as human beings, as our growth practice, as viewing ourselves in the LGBTQ plus world. We got some work to do internally in our house.
You bet we do. You bet we do.
We've got the old timers like me going, okay, that's interesting. Then I'm going to put it this way. We have the middle agers. When I say middle agers, I'm talking 18 to 24s that are so busy fighting over which Post-it note they get to hold and which one they're going to put down and which one they're going to fight with. And it's like, oh, can we just stop this?
Yeah.
We just stop this. If we stop this inner fighting, if, the people of color community, the LGBT community, just stop picking at each other, stop nicking at each other, and go back to the way that we fought in the 80s. Have a lot different world.
Right.
What's your thoughts?
We do. Well, there's a lot of people for you and I that opened up. Those people that fought in the 60s and the 70s made it a little bit safer for us in the 80s. And even then, I was in the closet,
I remember the business world had to be in the closet.
Did, absolutely. And the use of, for me back then, the use of pronouns was very different. You said he instead of she, Sue was Sam, and you just get confused. But I just think, though it has gotten better, my book is about labels. Now there seems to be so many labels. Is there a label on everything? And to me, that's a big, heavy weight. So if we can claim our labels, honor them, or get rid of the ones that don't serve us, I think the quality of our lives would be better. So let me tell you something. So one of the things I just got to say, so one of the acronyms for Q, it's not just queer, it's questioning. So I have said to myself, okay, so if Q is queer and it's also questioning, then why is it the LGBTQ community? It gets confusing for people.
It does. LGBT is where my brain stops at, because it's it's the language we're programmed into.
Yes.
Coming up for a very long time, it was the LG. And then we added the B, and then we added the T, and then generations and things change and growth changes, and things that are said today, and people go all out. Like, honey, they go ham more so than ACT UP ever thought about going a ham on. And I'm looking at like, yeah, I'm beautiful, intelligent, tall, charming, and hateful. Do you want to try me again?
Well, people like I've had this conversation in a female CEO peer group that I'm part of, and we're a very diverse group. We talk about within our gender and also in the LGBT community, the jealousy has to stop.
Yeah.
Just be kind, be grateful. Even if you missed out on an opportunity and you're like, damn, I wish I got that. Well, you can still wish that and can still be happy for your colleague that got it,
Right.
because that creates more abundance. But that green-eyed monster of jealousy closes doors. It closes relationship. It closes prosperity. But I don't know what it takes for people to get that. Maybe they have to really lose everything to realize that. I don't know.
I don't know. It's like in our community, I think once we got the decision that it was fought for 20 years, if not more, some of them went, "Oh, war over," and I went, "Oh, hell no, it ain't. Y'all guys think
It's
this is
not.
over? It's not."
And if you see now with Roe v. Wade on the chopping block, I'm praying for same-sex marriage not to be touched, because I will fight for my marriage. I
Right.
will.
Right.
I'm not hurting
waiting.
anybody. Leave me alone.
Well, exactly. It's like I'm still waiting for my marriages to be legal. We haven't gotten there yet. That conversation hasn't happened. The battle ain't over with. Okay? It has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with governmental benefits.
That's right.
Okay?
Right.
And none of those rights. I mean, there are congressmen who have felt empowered to speak when someone should have took their phone away from them and told them, go sit in a corner if you like your career, talking about pulling back amendments from the Constitution. And it's like, do you think that, you got hired on just because you look pretty?
Well, I think, and I think they forget who they work for. Last I heard that people in politics were public servants voted in by us, whatever side you're on.
Yeah.
But you know what, Aeson, this problem has been going back for hundreds and hundreds of years. So the same battles are being fought
over and
over. And aren't people getting tired of it?
Lord knows I'm tired of it. I've got enough flags. I've got enough t-shirts. I've got enough videos. I've got enough water. I've got enough I had hand sanitizer ready for the panini before we even got there, because it's real great to take tear gas off your skin. But I think the change has to come from the business world, which is where your book comes into this conversation. Shake It Off Leadership. You came up when women don't own businesses. Where's your male partner at?
Yeah. Oh, are you the secretary?
Yeah.
I think not.
So we got to discuss pay structure.
That's right. But see, that's kind of the way women were brought up in business. So we learned to endure it. And, I at this stage in my life, I'm a lot stronger for it. I look back and I could be really angry about it. And there's times that I do get angry now when I see behaviors that occur. But as far as the past, it's shaped to who I am today. I'm a lot more resilient because of it. And what am I going to do? It's 30 years later. I'm grateful. I have a successful company. I get to work with amazing people all day who trust me and value me as I value them. So I feel so grateful. So grateful.
Now, I'm trying to figure out how I want to ask this, but I really want to ask it just point blankly. How often do you still run into that? Are you the secretary?
No.
When
Oh God, no.
When will where's your partner at?
No. I mean, I actually went to, for the first time through COVID, I went to a business industry day last week, and that never comes up anymore. I'm very forthright in what I do, who I am, and I stand in a different way than I did back then. If I'm around a group of men that they are just, what's the word I want? I'm going to say thumping their chest, and they're overriding the conversation. I've learned to eloquently insert myself, and then they're quiet. And then I start talking. So now it's like, I don't feel, years and years ago, I used to feel like, oh, poor me. How am I going to get past it? Now I just go past it. And the person who's behaving that way just kind of steps back.
Mm-hmm. So how did you pivot? Because honey, you pivot better than most basketball players.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, with all the economic downturns that my company went through, I always had to. But my biggest pivot was through the 2008 recession. That's when I moved the company towards the federal government, because the federal government was the only entity that was hiring. So slowly but surely built a reputation, and we do a lot of business in the federal space. Difference is we go after contracts that have some kind of meaningful component that we feel really good about the work that we do. Because in general, the world of work is hard. So if you're going to do your work and you're going to serve your customers, it feels extra special when you can serve the greater good in some capacity.
Right. Yeah. How's your company changed since day one? Is AdNet the same?
No. Oh gosh, no. We have a really toxic-free workplace culture, a culture that thrives on communication. We thrive on being different. We thrive on each other's differences. Believe me, we don't all agree. I have a diverse workplace with diverse ideas and feelings, even through COVID. I didn't make anybody wrong as the leader. It's like, okay, well, you guys know, you see what my opinion is, and know that some of the things that I'm asking of everyone is that I want to keep everybody safe. I'm not trying to squelch anybody. The bottom line is I want to keep everybody safe. And the feedback was, well, we want to keep everybody safe too. So we agree, we'll go with it, but still have our own opinions on, vaccine, not vaccine, whichever. But we did not waver about the quality of our care.
Right. Matter of fact, one of the most touching sections of the book, and I believe it was one of your employees that really got tore down during the panini?
And I'm trying to think. It could have been someone on our contractual staff, where people disappeared a little bit and we had to go. I didn't, but two of my employees went to these individuals' homes.
Yeah.
To make sure they were okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure. The way I remember it in the book was that literally you got the phone call, a group of y'all went and propped them up for the 24, 48 hours until you got them into some mental health.
Oh, yes. That was from my Chamber of Commerce. One of the active members was really, really struggling and sounded suicidal. And we tracked him down. To make sure he was okay.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It can be a lot. And you being a leader is a lot. I mean,
it is.
How do you deal with burnout of yourself? When you are just done?
I know. I have to. I'm not the kind of person where, hey, I'm going to take a week off and go to the beach. That's not how I operate. And the really small business owners, we don't have that luxury. So sometimes for me, it's, I may end my day a little earlier, 5 o'clock, or I may, and this is what I encourage on the team, don't set your alarm, just log on, come in whenever you're ready to. And it's not really late, but it's just this kind of freedom that you can. And that really helps. And I have to put my technology down at night and sometimes on the weekends and just cut off and read something that has nothing to do with work at all.
So, interesting question. What type of planner person are you? Because, sorry, you got to manage a schedule of a company.
Big planner. Oh, yeah.
Which type? Bullet journal, Halifax?
I use Michael Hyatt full focus planner, and I've tried a lot of different planners like Best Self, but I really love Michael Hyatt on how he breaks it down. I like paper, so I still write it down. Even though, and I really use my Outlook calendar for things, but I start the day. I end the day planning on the planner for the next day, and include in that 5 things that I'm grateful for.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think the generations in front of us are going to get the same messages? First thing you do is buy your home. If you can't find a job, start a business.
I think society sets it up that the cost of living and everything is so expensive that it's going to take them longer to buy real estate than when we could. But what I'm hoping, and what I have seen and what I've heard a lot, is that through the pandemic, younger folks changed their spending habits because they couldn't go anywhere, and they've amassed a little bit more of a nest egg, and they're liking it.
Yeah.
Because they feel secure with that. And look, having money in their savings account and not having debt is a sense of security, which I encourage people to do at any age.
Yeah. Well, especially in our community, when you don't have safety of rental.
Right.
You may rent a place for 20 years, take perfect care of it, do the maintenance, lawn care, all that. Get a boyfriend, you lose your place. There was a retired drag queen. I'm going to use my words. They may not be the right words. I used to do bar, and her first statement for me the night I made $1,000 in tips was, half of that goes in the bank. Step 1 is you buy a house. Step 2 is you save up an emergency fund.
Yep. So what I learned growing up is like, remember when we had a car payment, it was a coupon book and you'd rip it out. Well, you create the same thing for your savings, and you staple it, clip it, write the check, put it in the bank. And so I used to do that, and that would help me save money. And then, I'm Italian. We had the big jugs for vinegar or whatever, the Cento jars. I still have my change jar, and I would throw dollars in it, and I would just empty my wallet. And it was last year. What else were we going to do during the pandemic? I rolled all the stuff. I probably had over $500 in that.
Yeah.
And put it in the bank.
I can remember I was getting ready to make a move, and when we packed the house up, we had enough to pay for the U-Haul from just dropping change. Like, we had a really bad habit. I was working bar and nursing at the time, so I'm getting 1s, 5, they'll stick it here, stash it there, stick it there, because we don't trust banks. Sorry, this is West Virginia. We've had them closed forever. You close off. Bad investments in the 80s, banks closed. You never done that.
Right.
So we had enough to pay for the move.
Well, I'm from the generation, my grandmother, when she died and we were cleaning out the house, she found, $50 bills here and this. So there was always a stash of something in the house. It's just how you were raised.
Yeah, it was.
And it worked.
And it does. It does work. You forget you put money here, and, sometimes, like, we need to go to the bank. It's like, now go clean the living room.
You're funny.
You'll find enough to pay for the yard service in there.
You're right. Right.
So what is this LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and is it only for Maryland businesses?
Yes. So, and allies. So it's mdlgbt.org. I'm sorry. It's like I should look it up.
You're right.
Yeah.
I've got the links in the background, honey. You're right.
Okay. And so there's and you may even know about it, the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, nglcc.com.org. They've got, over 50 or more affiliate chambers around the country, and they also are international. So it just made sense that Maryland started one, and we got a group of people together and we launched it officially 2017. We won the Rising Star Chamber Award in 2018. And, we've held our own through the pandemic. So now we're just starting up a Maryland LGBT Foundation, which is the 501c3 arm of it. So, and we want to work with educating people, young people in the underserved community, LGBT underserved communities, on how to create wealth. The silly things that you and I are talking about, how to save money. And yes, you can buy real estate, and here's how you do it.
Right.
You can start a business. Here's how you do it. So we want to create the next generation of entrepreneurs.
Now, in your book, you talk about a couple bad leaders and a couple bad business partners. It happens in business. What's your recommendations for choosing a partner?
First, I would say if you feel that you can do it without a business partner, do so. At the times that I chose to bring on a business partner were probably times in my life where I was not at the confidence level that I am at. And I think it's really important that if you are to bring on a business partner, that it's always have a buy-sell agreement. Thank God I had them, because I can remember with my previous business partner, there was a joke made. Well, we don't need that. Like, yeah, we do, because that's what you do in business. And it was that buy-sell agreement where I was able to make the transitions that I did. So that's number one. You have another business partner, you create a buy-sell agreement. Number two, be very clear on what the roles are so that there's no floating around gray area. So if you have someone that's, I'll say, in-house finance side, outside the rainmaker, and whatever goes under that, make sure you're really clear. And vet your partner. If you're going to bring a partner in, vet them. Find out what they've done. Just pay attention to their behaviors, to their spending habits. You know, the same thing you would do if you're hiring an employee. Same thing what we might do when we look for a significant other.
Yeah, because it is a marriage.
Right. Do you have a car? Do you have a job? That's what we did back in the, that's what we did back in the 80s. You got a job? You got a car?
Do you cook? Can you clean?
You clean.
What, you know, in the polyamory, the current joke is, you know, what streaming services do you have? Do they fit our list? You know, do you have like stars and we don't have that type of thing? And we've made jokes about that on the Mountain Bear Show, but really, guys, it is important to look at the compatibility.
Yes.
I can't remember her name now. She's the woman in New York that's on the Shark Tank that runs a real estate business. She says, choose a partner that does your opposite. Barbara, yeah. Yep. And I don't know. I've been one of those ones that's like, I like to own it all. I've been through too many divorces. I will take out a loan. I will take an investor. But ownership is mine. You can take the desk.
And you know, hey, and I'm glad that I own the company 100%, because it's really been in the past 10 years when I severed that relationship that I really kind of rebranded the company. It's almost like I started from scratch and redesigned everything in the culture. And I'm really grateful. I got my teeth kicked in. It was tough in a lot of ways to rebuild, but I learned a lot, and I'm grateful for the journey.
Yes, very much so. And we're grateful for this book.
Thank you.
So what about the 20-something of you, the 24, 26 version of you? The one starting out with, oh, you're selling the business. What advice would you have for her?
Oh, if someone is selling the business?
No, honey, before you bought AdNet. I think it was like, in the book, it seems like you had 3 days to decide if you wanted the company or not. I'm sure it was much longer than
you
that.
know what? I started the company from scratch. Yeah. So I was a founder, and I started it. And there was a point in time where I was with another company, and it was kind of like, okay, I needed to either make a decision because this isn't working, or am I going to work for someone else? And it was at that time that I said, no, I I'm just going to start my own, because the company that I was with was bought by a, worldwide company, and the culture changed. So a lot of us left. So that's, I started my own business. So my recommendation, if there's someone out there and you have a yearning to start a business, do your research, do something that you have always wanted to do, or you can even go franchise, see what's really popular in your area, do your research.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're young, I thought that I didn't really have as much to lose.
Right.
So I started it.
You didn't have a significant other at that time. You didn't
No.
have children at that time.
No.
That's been a growing pain that you cover in the book, is learning to be a mom.
Yes. Oh, my kids are great. Thank God for them. And they make it all worthwhile. And from I am really blessed, Aeson, because within the first month that Susan and I got together is when I met the kids. They embraced me from the first meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really lucky.
They
really lucky.
sound like awesome children,
Oh,
and you're an honorable grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I have a lot of fun now.
And you talk about your brother.
Yeah.
And your other family relations there, and how they were a lot different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my brother Tom died. The priest, he died 2011.
Tom, yes.
Yeah, and then my brother Jack died 18 months later, both from heart attacks.
Wow.
Oh, I loved them. I miss them terribly. But I carry them right here.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel them right here on my shoulder when I'm having to make a difficult decision, because one of my brothers was a banker, my dad was a banker, so I usually have them sitting right here.
Mm-hmm.
So
how did your company change? Because we, as small business owners, we freak when there is I'll be really honest and open about it.
Mm-hmm.
I done my father's wake, because we didn't do a funeral. We done a wake. The wake ended at 8:30.
Mm-hmm.
I had reading scheduled the next morning. I didn't stop. How did you deal with this?
Well, when Tommy died, we were just coming out of, we had just lost a big contract. So, things were still wonky with the economy. We lost a big contract. I was in this rebuild mode again, and he dies. We have 2 funerals and wakes.
Mm-hmm.
First one was in New Jersey, where I'm originally from. And then everybody comes back down to Baltimore, because he was his monastery was here, and he's buried here in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that whole week. And then I had to get back to work. I mean, my employees were, you do whatever you need to, but the side of me that was panicked about the economy was like, I got to get back to work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was still really sensitive and felt vulnerable. So the first couple meetings I set up with customers were customers that I knew for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
that I could ease in, and we could talk about life, and I would feel okay. So I just had to ease into it.
Mm-hmm.
And the days that I just wanted to crumble and cry, I'd leave early.
Yeah. Now, did that lead to the drinking problem, or was that already way beforehand?
Oh, honey, I had a great time in the 80s.
We all did. I'm glad the internet doesn't exist.
Oh my God. Well, I just, when I think back, I can't believe I'm still alive. Some of the things that we did back in the 80s, and, I just had that party personality, and it changed.
Mm-hmm.
It changed over the years, but, then, especially after my brothers died, I'd come home from work and pop open a bottle of wine, sit in front of the fireplace, put on some music, and I was gone.
Mm-hmm.
The sadness, I'd put on my headphones, and Susan, God love her, she would just, I'm worried about you. And I'd be like, you know what? I'm worried about me too.
Mm-hmm.
And I had wanted to get sober for a long time. And then it just, especially after Jack died, I said, okay, these guys left the planet too young. I'm staying for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I gave it up. I've been sober about 7.5 years. Thank you. Best gift I ever gave myself.
Yeah.
Really.
and sometimes you have to have a coping mechanism. What's yours now?
Hmm. You know, prayer is really important to me, prayer and meditation. Every morning I start with prayer and meditation. I do a lot of yoga stretches that really help. When I get into my running groove, I ran 2 half marathons and I do like to run. So sometimes that also helps me a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What's your what I call breaker moment? When you reach that point when you normally would walk in the door, pop open the bottle of wine, or reach for the bottle of scotch. What's your breaker? What do you switch up? Was that when you grab the shoes?
I think I have to go out for a walk, a run. I have definitely just said, look, I need to just check out for like 15 minutes and center myself, and I'll sit quietly somewhere in the house and get centered. Yeah. I don't have and I'm just grateful. I don't have the desire to drink anymore. And I hope to God that
Congrats.
stays that way. I know we're any recovering alcoholic, we're one drink away.
Hmm.
Um, but I just channel it in
Hmm.
other ways.
Yeah. And that's something hard to understand is the culture's changing on that because it used to be meet for drinks and sign a contract,
Right.
meet for drinks and negotiate the deal. I have
Mhm.
negotiated some of the best nursing contracts, 2 sheets to the wind and too much vodka that I should have not been able to function.
I know.
But you get older and that no longer works and you have to change and grow.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So now a lot of the decision makers I would normally deal with are in my age group, and we want to go home to our families that night. So
Hmm.
it's more like the older that I'm getting, I notice that the people that I want to do business with,
Hmm.
we want to do it in the work day because we want to get home, whether we have kids or family at home, or we don't burn the midnight oil in that way anymore. So people are doing business differently now.
Well, they are.
Mhm.
And, your company and a lot of other companies went through a shift. And I hate to say it, we kind of broke it. We were already working from home and
Yeah.
had been working from home since the beginning of the industry because the old ads for the networks used to say housewife that wants a couple of hours of work from home that
Right.
has a little bit of an intuitive gift. We'll train you and everything. How hard was that to release the reins of not seeing your people every day?
I think it came at the right time for all of us because our work is very fast. All work is fast paced, but it's really,
Okay.
really fast paced. And I was usually on the road a lot as the rainmaker.
Right.
So to be home in the pandemic and do work virtually, we missed each other, but we all really valued the focus time.
Hmm.
So I'd say we thrived. Everybody thrived more than not.
Hmm.
So now we're back in a hybrid where we come in 2 days a week, and
Hmm.
it's just really flexible. Everybody knows what they need to do. If you need not to come in, you don't come in. Come in, you come in.
Hmm. Are you seeing that in the recruiting industry that's a new bargaining chip?
Yes. And it's fine because I actually have employees who are not local.
Uh-huh.
And so the pandemic just forced me to look at how to hire differently and how to lead virtually. And
Mhm.
I kind of like it. Look, I'm an
Mhm.
old dog. I've been on the road my entire life. So
You ain't
I've
buying a car
gotten
every 2 years to drive it either.
right, right. Right. I mean, hey, I kind of liked it. I remember the car sat for a long time and I got in it. I was like, "Oh, how do I do that again?" And that's how long before
Hmm.
I got back in the car,
Yeah.
So,
Like, where's this button? Where's that button? What is it supposed to do?
right. Oops, what's that?
Yeah.
So I
Um,
liked it.
yeah, and keeps you off the beltway because
Mhm.
Lord knows I don't know anybody that loves the DC beltway at
Baltimore
all.
Beltway is terrible too.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I don't know. I've literally, if I have to do DC, I make them drive me. I've gotten to that point in my life when it's like, no, I don't have to do that. When do you know to scale?
Say that again.
When do you know to scale?
It seems to be almost ongoing in relation to the contracts that we have. So we're in a hiring mode now.
Yeah.
Adding
Well,
on
a lot of
insurance
industries
stuff
are.
too. Yeah. Yeah. I would rather have more people so we don't burn out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking to diversify the business because it's just the healthiest thing to do. I hear too many stories of companies that everything was over here and something happens, no, that's not in anybody's control to shift. So I don't need any more white hair. I diversify where I can.
And now, do you delegate where you can also?
I need to do better at that.
I suck at it, honey. I want my hand in that pie. I've got a producer sitting right here in the middle of my show, and it's like, just listen to the show. I'll do the links and all that. I have such a time as a leader, and maybe you have suggestions because you work with a lot more leaders. Two questions. One is, when does a leader know to hire a secretary or an assistant or a VP? And how do you release that?
Well, somehow I think you knew how to ask me that question. I'm in the process of hiring that person now. I have not really had a secretary or an admin ever. So I delegate certain things out based on someone's strengths, and my operations manager happens to be my daughter, is amazing.
Congrats.
She anticipates what I need. So I could, if she sees me go like this, she'll say like, all right, what do you need? And she would kind of be like that over the years. But now I am about to hire an assistant who's I'm delegating some of the stuff to. And I just said, surrender.
Now, are you going to hire an assistant in Baltimore? Or are you going to hire a remote assistant? Or are you going to hire what my industry is pushing, which is to hire VA virtual assistants out of the Philippines?
She is virtual, but she just lives in Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can have lunch and with a little bit of planning.
Yeah. So I don't expect her. We have done everything really well virtually. So I don't expect her to come up to the office because the things that she's going to do doesn't require that we see each other face to face.
Right.
So it's totally fine.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. And I'm excited about it.
Yeah. So you're reaching 60.
Am
60. Okay. I was going to say 60, honey.
I grabbed it.
Okay. When are you stopping? Are you going to still be recruiting tech stock and tech people and assistants and all these positions at 85?
My mom retired when she was 70. My grandmother actually worked after she retired in her 60s. Then she was babysitting all the grandkids. And then she went to work in her 80s. So I don't, Aeson, that's such a tough question because I just don't see myself stopping. I've got more to give and I've got more for the company to do before I would even think of that. And I'm not there yet.
Okay. Well, good. Yeah. I don't want you there yet because you're leading too much. And I do mean that you're doing a lot of changes with the community of charmers. You're doing a lot of changes in business. You're doing a lot of changes in general.
Yes. Yeah. I found my voice.
Good. I'm
in
glad
my 50s.
You got the question. You got that. You found your flow too.
Yeah. Yeah. I really got into my groove. I think what precipitated it all is when my brother Tommy died. I just really got that life is too precious. We were exactly 10 years apart, and there was so much more I wanted to be able to do and to see for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So soon after that is when I transitioned out the business partnership. Like I said, I found my voice. So I was, age 49, and wow, life just opened up in a different way for me.
Yeah, very much so.
So still have more to do.
You do. So Ellen, our other guest had a question for you. Would you consider yourself a late bloomer, that your voice is maturing as you mature?
Yes. Like fine wine.
Mm-hmm.
I may not drink it anymore, but I know what happens with fine wine. It gets better with age.
So, with that question, I got another question for you. How much do you see this gig economy doing? Where do you see it going to?
Well, we seem to be getting bigger, more members. I really want to see the chamber. It's always been my vision to really expand more in Western Maryland
Mm-hmm.
and Southern Maryland, because the LGBT community is not as welcomed in those areas. So we really want to make sure that we tap into the LGBT community, whether you're a business owner, an emerging owner, someone, a professional in a workplace that feels slighted.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcomed at the chamber.
Cool. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
What I was talking about is the gig economy and how, it's now emerging that we now see so many independent contractors that, it's not really independent contracting if we want to put it to the grains of the IRS. They're actually business owners, or they're non-classified employees. Where do you see that going? How do you see that going in business?
Well, for the LGBT community, it's only getting bigger and bigger. So LGBT-owned businesses generate more than $10 trillion in the economy.
Wow.
We are a force to be reckoned with. So, don't discount us, don't make fun of us. And if somebody wants to come into your store and get a wedding cake, you better serve them.
Yeah. Or you'll be out of business.
That's right. That's right.
And that's something else we've got to, and that's really important with the Chamber of Commerce, is to start interlinking the LGBT businesses, because we don't have those interlinks anymore.
Right.
The old interlinks used to be the bars.
Yes.
I've done more business in a bar than I've ever done anywhere else. It used to be the community, and then we move into the 90s and it's community centers and bars, and now it's like, if I want to go find a CEO, what do? Type it into Grindr? I mean, trying to find other people to talk business with is difficult.
There's a lot more out there than people think. And if you think about hiring someone who's LGBT, whether it's as an employee or as a vendor, we're from the group that always worked extra hard to prove ourselves, because we had to be better, because a lot of us were afraid that if you found that I was gay, you wouldn't like me, you wouldn't want to work with me. So we want to make you love what we do and who we are. So once you find out that we're gay, you're still going to want to be around us. So we're a community that gives everything and more, because we want to be accepted. So I know for myself, I work extra hard, and I'm not going to tell you that I work harder than anybody else, because I don't know that. I know that I will go to the ends of the earth, because when you find out that I am an LGBT-owned company, and if you have an opinion, I want you to sit back and say, hey, her company's damn good.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. For me, it doesn't make business sense, because a lot of the problem, and I'm going to sound very bad to the average listener, but understand the view I'm coming from. In the old world, we will call it the old world. They're going to work the holidays.
Mhm. Right.
They're not going to need the paternity leave.
Mhm.
They're not going to have the other problems that go on.
Mhm.
You know, I still have the record for the most overtime in a week at
Probably.
2 nursing homes. Why? Because I had the availability.
Right. Now, it is different now
Mhm,
because we're having kids and families and, so I'm happy to say that there is definitely a shift there.
mhm,
But, there still is that bias. Like when I wrote in the book about being a step parent, just because
mhm,
one does not birth children does
mhm.
not mean that they have less value than someone that does.
Right.
You
And
know?
that took you a bit. That in the book, it sounds like it took a bit to get for people to get that.
Yeah, yeah. I had to, again, I had to kind of step into conversations and
Mhm.
have it be different because rather than feeling like I would come home and tell my wife, my feelings got hurt. Well, why didn't you say something? You're right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll start saying something in a nice way. And then things like that stopped.
Mhm.
So, I take responsibility if I was afraid to say something, but it's
Yeah.
how you say it.
So how long did it take for you to put a picture in your office?
Hmm. Well, when I met Susan, it was 1998. Her picture went up right away.
Mhm.
I was usually pretty careful. Like I'd have my guy friends, like my friend Ray. He was always like my boyfriend, or I'd go to
Mhm.
events with him, or he'd go with me. So he and I would be up as I'd have somebody else, me and my girlfriend at the time. So I kind of masked it with lots of pictures.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those weird and people don't think of this anymore because the partner's the background.
Hmm.
They're all these were little things that you had to look for, like the collection of photos and that type of thing.
Hmm.
And little cues of different things. And I wonder if we've lost a little bit of our culture, a little bit of the office hidden culture.
Well, I tell you, um, over, I'll say between 2016 and 2020, there were definitely people, even in the federal government, that were kind of going back in the closet and not coming out because it didn't feel safe.
Right. And I'm going to be honest right now, it doesn't feel safe.
Mm-mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It still
It still doesn't.
it still doesn't. I mean,
Yeah.
especially with the rest of the what I call the recessive dinosaurs, um, that
Hmm.
are you know, it's like really,
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many other things to fight about. Just,
yeah,
go away.
yeah. So, what's on your nightstand? What are you reading?
You know what? I'm reading a book. Where did I read about it? Fiona and Jane. It's a novel.
Okay.
It's a new novel that came out. The writer, Asian woman, I can't remember, but I've been into that. That's been a fun book. I am reading Sharon Gless's memoir. Oh my God, it is so funny. I have it on Audible. I think
Hmm.
it's called Apparently There Were Complaints. It is so funny. So
Awesome.
funny. Yeah. So those are the two that I'm working on right now.
Very cool. And
Yeah.
that's important for leaders. You notice she did not state one business book.
Mm-mm. Nope.
One business book, guys.
I mean, I have one floating around that I need to work on. I read one page and then I went over to Fiona and Jane and Sharon Gless and said, "Yeah, forget you."
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it gets boring. I like to mix it up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, darling, thank you for coming on. Again, her book is Shake It Off, Leadership. You'll
Mhm.
get it on Audible, get it in on hard copy.
Mhm.
I'm actually making my husband read it because he's in IT, and it's like, no, you need to know this because I'm not going to have to explain to you why the employees get the weekend off between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
That's right. Oh, and let me add this. So if
Uh-huh.
there's any of your readers, on my website, betsycirillo.com, there's a workbook, a free download if you want to kind of get a taste of the book. And there's
Mhm.
some exercises in that workbook that might help.
Very cool. I'm going to go get that because I didn't get that.
That came out later.
Yeah. But no, thank you, Betsy. I hope you write some more. You're a very good author.
Thank you.
I'm finding that we live during a time in business and in life that I don't think is remembered correctly, because it didn't sound like it was remembered correctly in what we're seeing now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, very different than living it. And also, if you write something, please come back. We'd love to have coffee with you.
Absolutely. And invite me anytime. I would love it. I enjoyed this evening.
And as the keep me updated, because you have my email now, because I actually emailed you directly about the chamber. And if something's going on, let's come over and have coffee on Friday night.
That'd be wonderful.
Awesome. All right, guys. You have a great evening.
Take care.
Darling.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So we're going to wrap the show up there. It's been a pleasure. We had 2 great guests, 2 great messages. Find your voice and rock it in business with both of our guests. That was kind of the statement. We will be back Thursday night with Coffee and Tea. And of course, Lady Gwen will be our co-host with me on Coffee and Tea. And of course, Friday night, and that's at 8 o'clock. Friday night at 9:30, we will be back with Mountain Bears. We'll be talking about hot topics, GLBT issues, and whoever knows what else is going through my mind. Good night, y'all. Bye. And I still, there it is.
You can't tell me the deck is stacked. You can't whisper behind my back. You can't show me how the odds are up against me all day long. But I've been through the fire and come out alive, and there's no more fear in my eyes. Oh, now I'm rising, and you can't bring me down. You can't stop me now.